So, this video seems random, and that's because it is random. I was not expecting to be recording at 11:41 at night, but I got some things to say about the finale to Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, and I really feel like saying it now because I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep tonight while thinking about all this. So first up, before I go any further, let me make this very clear. This isn't like the sort of minute the show ends rant video I did last year where I had a mental breakdown after watching CGI sheep be killed by a talking board. Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is a fantastic anime. It has great writing, lovable characters, a real interesting story, good animation. It's a fantastic series and is easily one of the best shows of the whole year. I mean, most people know this at this point. There's no way you haven't heard of this show. So because of this discussion is going to be full-on spoilers. I am going to treat it as if you just finished the show with me and we're having a conversation about how it ends. Alright, so let's get right into it. My big problem with the finale, and this is sort of a problem with what we did last week's episode and sort of the big twist that happened 2 weeks ago, and that is the entire finale is based on a last-minute plot twist that we learned way too late in the game. Now, don't get me wrong. At first, I thought this plot twist was really interesting. I'm, of course, talking about the twist that Kaede has amnesia. She doesn't remember anything about her past, she doesn't remember anything about the outside world, and she's just sort of been living this very sheltered, protected life for fear of what could happen or if she has any more outdoor experiences. This is super fascinating to me because it's a fantastic twist, because it's interesting, and more importantly, it does the big things that I feel a twist has to do. It changes the way you've looked at everything up till that point, and it also affects everything that happens from that point going forward. Because once you learn that Kaede has no memories, it changes the way you've seen everything about her up until this point. Suddenly all the weird, quirky things she does isn't necessarily because she's weird and quirky, it's because she's essentially a toddler trapped in a middle schooler's body. All her experiences, everything she's dealt with in the real world is gone. And that's really interesting. And the fact that the next episode is about Sukata sort of trying to figure out how he's supposed to deal with it, and how does he get her back into the real world, it is really nice, and I like how it's all sort of treated. Like, it is sort of treated as her own personal want to better herself. And that is a lot of times really rare in these kinds of shows. So getting that was fantastic. But there are a couple problems it brings up. This is very impromptu, by the way. I'm just making this up as I go. The first problem it brings up is that once it's done, the whole concept of her just finding cuts all over her body as her adolescent syndrome was going on is basically forgotten. Yeah, we see her with a couple bruises on her, but those don't really add or change anything going on, so they don't really serve a purpose. But I thought this was really scary. Like, it was a really interesting concept, the whole sort of she just is being cut all the time. And I really liked it because it fit with sort of the overall theme of the show. And that being that there are things that are out of your control, there are scary things that happen around you and to you that you may not necessarily be able to fix 100%, but life is about learning to accepting these things and figuring out how to live with them. But the thing is about the memory is that isn't supernatural. There's no more supernatural thread. In today's world, the concept of someone developing a second personality or having self-induced amnesia because of bullying and because of the internet and just because of the world we live in, it's not that crazy or that out of the realm of possibility. Now, obviously, all of the adolescent syndrome cases we saw throughout the show had very obvious metaphors for what was going on in the characters' real lives, but this kind of takes it to another level. This is now something that is tangible and something that is solvable with things like therapy, whereas what sort of made everything fun about the other cases was Sakato had to solve them because he was the only one who could really understand what was going on after having gone through this himself. But when you make it that it's something that is understandable, when you literally have a doctor saying, oh, this happened because of this, and this is the solution, and this is what's going on, the minute you bring in that realm of reality, the realm of fantasy of the situation is pretty much gone. And yeah, it's all fantasy, it's all made up. But that really sort of like crazy weirdness that sort of made the show a lot of fun isn't there anymore, and now you just solve it like you would anyone else who had a mental breakdown. And that's sort of the problem is, well, there isn't really anything that scary going on, and it also sort of affects how I view the mother and her having her own mental breakdown. Again, what was scary about the of everything before is that the mother had a breakdown, presumably because her daughter was like getting cut up, and the Sakato had this giant scar on him. It was scary, it was out of her control, and she just couldn't handle it. Instead, because it was the memory thing, it was something that isn't ultimately that hard to deal with, and feels like something that's fairly solvable and workaroundable. So therefore, why did that cause her a mental breakdown exactly? If we spent more time on the parents and why all this crap happened, I feel like we could have fleshed this out more and delved more into it. But as it stands, everything with the parents just feels tacked on and feels like something added. And it shouldn't, considering how much of the family bond between these two siblings is a plot point in this show. Moving on from that, we then get the biggest problem created by this, and that is when Kaede gets her memories back. I kind of don't care. Like, I really don't, because the thing is, we don't know anything about this girl. We don't know anything about who Kaede was as a person before her memory loss. All we know is that she's a 5-year-old. That's really all we ever got about her and all we ever really learned. If we knew what she was like beforehand, or maybe got some fun flashbacks, I would care more, but as it stands, I just sort of feel like, oh, this happened. I don't feel any connection, and I don't really feel the drama that should be going on in the situation. And I feel like the writers didn't really know how to represent it either, because Sakato's reaction feels very out of character, and very just sort of not genuine. Like, the thing is that, yes, obviously he had been living with this girl for 2 years, and this was the version of her that was in front of him, but he spent, like, 10 years with the other one. So, like, wouldn't it make more sense to represent him as maybe feeling more melancholy, maybe confused, not sure how he should feel? Sakato's big thing is that he's pretty good at being able to figure out a bizarre situation and knowing how to react. But the thing is that this situation should be bad for him because he doesn't really know how to react. And that should be represented by his usual personality. Instead, we have this very big out-of-character moment where he freaks out, runs away, and everyone's like, meh, he'll be fine. He's just running out into the pouring rain. It's not like he has a giant cut on his chest that we're never going to explain. Fuck, where was I? But essentially, that's kind of my big issue, is that we then don't spend any time with Kaede because the rest of the episode is based on just ending it off with him and Mai, which is fine. I love his relationship with Mai, and the two have great chemistry, but I want to know what's going to happen with Kaede. The thing is, you could dedicate a whole season of television just to what's going on with her and how this affects her, and what it's going to be like trying to reacclimate to society and figure out what the past 2 years of her life have been. That, to me, is ultimately a lot more interesting than, oh shit, it's my girlfriend's birthday and I forgot. And that sucks, because I would love to care about what's going on with Sakato and Mai, but I don't, because I'd rather see what's going on with Kaede. Instead, you now have these two sort of separate plots that all need to be sort of stitched together to have the finale work. You have to resolve everything that was brought up 2 episodes ago, and you need to basically resolve what's been the whole show. And I just feel like it wasn't necessarily done properly. And I feel like if we got flashbacks to who Kaede was, if we really understood the kind of person she was, then when the memories came back, it would have felt more fulfilling. It would have felt more like everything has come full circle and she's come together. Now, I like it in the finale when you see her reading the diary, and you sort of see the way she sort of reacts to Mai feels very like how she was. And I feel like that's supposed to be our closure of the merging of the two sides of her personality, but I want a little bit more. I want to see that sort of get developed. We spent so much time in this show on characters' personalities and how what's going on to them affects them. So I would have liked to have seen what Kaede was going through. I would have liked to have seen how this changes her, but it doesn't, and it sort of just feels like everything with Kaede was just so Sakato's arc could feel fulfilled, and I just don't feel like we needed that. But all in all, I think Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl is a fantastic series, one of the best of the year. You obviously watched it if you're watching this video, and if you didn't watch it, what the hell's wrong with you? Go watch it, it's amazing. But tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Did the finale bug you? And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me for the top 10 best and the worst lists.